What the Carolina Hurricanes just pulled off is absolutely unreal. Going out to sign the top available free agent on the market and solidifying the back end for the futures to come. Carolina just became one of the most terrifying teams in the NHL, and we're going to break down everything you need to know on this masterclass of an offseason later on this episode. Before we get into that, if you're part of the 82.6% watching this and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, we're going to be covering you guys on everything to do around the National Hockey League and your Carolina Hurricanes. So look no further. This is the best place to get content about the league. But with that, Darius, we'll just hop straight into the first topic today, where we do know this has been a masterclass. We seen last year with Nikolaj, they moved him out for Rantanen. They went into a bit of a situation with that, but ended up with Logan Stankoven, Keandre Miller, Nikolaj Ehlers for the next 6 years, and netted a first with this. This has been wizardry. This has been incredible business, and it goes right into getting the top available guy. Now we're going to touch on Keandre Miller, the rest of the outlook of this team, but what is your initial reaction a full day after on them landing the top winger and top free agents?
Just some tidy business by Eric Tulsky, and they still have such an absolute ton of salary cap space still that they can weaponize heading into this season. But like you mentioned, they get the top available, heading into free agency. I guess he maybe wasn't the top available player, but certainly once July 1st hit and everybody re-signed the day before, which we weren't expecting, he was considered obviously the top free agent. So they got all of the guys that they wanted to lock up. They reconfigured their defense, which I think is huge. Keandre Miller is a huge question mark. Let's not make no mistake about it. At 7.5 million, it's going to be a huge question mark. We can get into that. We can get into defense and the lineup and all that. But getting obviously Nikolaj Ehlers, this guy is a star in the league. And one thing that I've been very critical of the Hurricanes for before is that they're a great team. I'm not taking that away from them. Rod Brindamore is a fantastic coach, and they play like a cohesive unit. But this guy is a star, and you're finally adding a superstar and star power to your lineup, which I think is something that they have been missing. And I don't think that stars, necessarily put you over the top at times in the playoffs. Like, I don't think the Florida Panthers have like a Connor McDavid on their team, but it doesn't matter, right? Because they win the Stanley Cup and they play a good team game. And the Hurricanes are there, but I think they were missing one extra piece. And getting Ehlers is huge for this team. And I think that it could possibly help them, tip them over the top. And again, we don't know exactly what the lines are going to look like heading into next season. It's probably going to look something like this, which is very dangerous heading into the season. And Stankoven's still such a young player in this league, but tidy business. You lose, obviously, you take on Mikko Rantanen, you lose Necas this season, but you've turned it around, getting a pretty good prospect. You sign, what was considered on July 1st, the top free agent, and retool your defense. They're looking pretty good. Obviously, the goaltending is the same as last year, and that's fine, right? It got you where it got you, but obviously I think that the lineup looks way deeper.
And I think the big thing is looking at the left side there with Ehlers, Svechnikov, Hall, and Martinuk. This is one of, if not the best left side in the rest of the hockey league. You're looking down the center. Yes, Kotkaniemi might not be the best center to run at the second line, but overall, this team has scoring on every single line, and even two guys that can score an incredible clip on most lines. But the big thing is looking at Ehlers, and we're going to touch on everything else. Don't worry about that, Canes fans. But looking at Ehlers, bringing him in, an elite goal scorer. He can still putting up a tiny bit of defense, but very good offensively. Someone that can come in, score you 20 goals. There was a bit of issues with his health concerns, but playing a full 82 games last year, almost playing 70 this year, he can still perform in the playoffs. 7 points in 8 games during this run as well. Ehlers is going to be a game changer for this team. A team that has been stuck on the hump of making the conference finals and not getting over to that Stanley Cup finals. But I do believe bringing in Ehlers, making this a deeper team, and we're going to touch on how they can still add more, which is insane. But this is the team that is poised to make a deep run. You can still add people, but with what they've done is insane, and it goes into the fact that they still almost have 11 million in cap space to work with this season. Yes, you do have some guys to sign at the end of the year, but at this current moment, they have most of their core locked up for not only this year, but next year. There's still some people at the bottom, but I mean, looking at this, Darius, is there a way that you think this team goes out? It could be at deadline going into the season. I think they're going to be very heavy on rental players, and I think they can still weaponize this cap space. And I don't know if you feel the same way with getting a second line center.
they could do whatever they want. And if you want to acquire a second line center, you can do that via trade right now. You have over $10 million in cap space. You can do that via free agency. Although I don't think, there's anyone left out there via free agency to slot into that second line center position. Everyone's pretty much gone at this point, but you can do it via trade and you have the assets to do that if you want. Obviously, like you said, they can go after rentals at the deadline because with $10 million, over $10 million in cap space, again, you can do pretty much anything you want. You can be active at the deadline and you open up so much flexibility during the season. You're going to accumulate cap space as well. Let's not forget about that, heading into the deadline. So they're in a great spot. They pretty much, I think, I don't think Canes fans would hate them going into the season with this lineup. It's similar to last year. You got help, obviously, on the left wing, which you didn't even necessarily need that help, but you got that superstar star power in Ehlers. Now you retooled your defense. And I really want to talk about the defense too, because I'm actually, very intrigued by what they did. Obviously, signing Keontae Miller. I'm not a big fan of what they gave up. I think the Rangers ultimately won that trade in the end. They got a really good young prospect, big right shot defenseman who's an offensive defenseman. They got a first and a second. But, if you're the Hurricanes, you knew you were losing players. You knew you were losing Orlov. You knew you were losing Burns. They weren't going to re-sign, and I don't think that the organization wanted to re-sign them. And in return, you get a big left shot defenseman who didn't look great in New York, especially last year, but they were having a down year. And you have to take into account that he was forced to play top line minutes. He was playing with Adam Fox in New York. So now he's going to slot in behind Slavin, who is the best defensive defenseman and probably on one of the best contracts in the entire league. I have no idea how they pulled that off, but Miller makes 7.5. You have to account for the cap inflating over the next couple of years. So that could make some sense. I think it's a lot of money still for that player, and he has a lot to prove coming into this season. But I think that if it does work out, I mean, Eric Tulsky is going to look like a genius. Look at this defense core. And obviously Nikishin, who we covered on the cover on the channel before, coming in during the playoffs. He didn't look out of place at all. Looks like he's going to be a great NHLer. So I really like what they did with this defense. Maybe they could add one more piece on the right side, I think. But all in all, I mean, I really like how they've kind of retooled here. But there are still some question marks there. On paper, it looks good, but we need to see how it plays out when the season starts.
Because losing Dmitry Orlov is not a big loss. Let's be honest. He's a great player, but he did not fit what we're doing. Brent Burns going to Colorado. You open up space. Like you said, Nikishin has said to join this team. Get a full season. Once a captain in the KHL, looking like one of the best prospects coming over from overseas. But this is the team that you still can add on defense if you want to. But I do think the one thing you need to look at on this team, they're going to be very active, is the goaltending. Freddie Anderson on the last year, he has had some health concerns throughout his career, but I do think you can add someone on the back end. I think John Gibson would have been great. He went to Detroit, so they missed out on this opportunity. But I do think, Canes fans, you're looking at a team that can add so much. On the forward position, as soon as I can find it, you have pretty much solidified everything. You can get a center, but every single team in the NHL is looking for a second line center. We see Mikael Granlund signed for $7 million. Pius Suter signed for $4 million. That was your two best options after most players came off the market. They can still make a trade. They can make a trade going into training camp. But overall, what is your thoughts on this offseason they've had? They've made very good work on what they traded Niches for at the end of last season going into this year. What is your thoughts on where they can upgrade? What do you think they should do with their cap space? Let us know down below. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We're going to be back with a bunch of episodes, so keep your eye out for that all off season long. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.